I read books and whatever. So sometimes you get these questions and you're not able to ask that questions. You don't have that access. In my opinion, what do we do with that? Like, what do I do with that? For example, you write something for adults, kids get their hands on it. Now, what do you do with that, right? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of New Day, Same BS. My name is CT. Today, I just wanted to talk about something, and something interesting for me, something that might not make this monologue actually look great, but I actually think it's important to understand the difference and the challenges in general, and that would be, in my opinion, the difference between writing and conversations. They both have advantages, right? But I think it's important to just recognize the difference and how you consume um, information as well. So I think it's interesting. So on this channel, I have something. In my opinion, this monologue would be an example of writing. Um, or I wouldn't just say writing, but just the ability to speak without being challenged or being asked questions or being clarified for any points that you make in that conversation or in that piece, right? And I always say it's kind of interesting because the thing with writing books, doing something like a monologue like this is that it's way easier, right? You can get your thoughts out there, but the people consuming that information might not have the opportunity to clarify, ask questions, ask what, the things that they might actually be wondering, but it's easier to disseminate than one-on-one conversations with people. But I kind of find it interesting, um, the fact that people take so much credence to things that are written and actually said without without enough perspective and context, not being able to ask questions about that for yourself, and you take it as law because there's a lot that actually goes into that. So with the thing with writing is you get your thoughts out there, right? The thing with something like a monologue like this is you get your thoughts out there. There's nobody clarifying. You might say something that's incomplete, right? But it doesn't matter. The person just has to basically consume the content and doesn't get a chance to clarify and ask questions. And it might actually just be um, just a communication thing, but that opportunity is not there. Also, I think a lot of people don't like going back and forth with people. In a way, in the sense that they know what they're saying. They don't actually want to go back and forth. And it's also tedious to go back and forth to clarify and try to give more context. And in a case where you're actually trying to make your point, realizing that your point actually has disadvantages, but want to just say it as if it's the law. You don't want people asking you questions. So actually, I think it's interesting because you look at textbooks, you look at books, you look at the best-selling books, whatever, right? The interesting thing I always think about in that situation is when I read books and whatever. So sometimes you get these questions and you're not able to ask that questions. You don't have that access. In my opinion, what do we do with that? Like, what do I do with that? On this channel, I do this monologues for the simple fact that I can get my thoughts out there. But I really enjoy the conversations part where I can clarify, ask questions, and stuff like that. And I think that's where you actually learn more. And I don't think people don't get this. There's a reason that people actually book one-on-one consultations. You go to a therapist, you go to a specialist, you find a professional, you go one-on-one, you book them, you pay. It's because you understand that you can go read that person's book, you can go read everything on Google, but at the end of the day, it's a whole lot different where you actually can give a context and perspective, and it can be better broken down. Your questions can actually be better answered because when you disseminate it for everybody, it doesn't actually apply to everyone based on the context and the time and the perspective that either the book is written or that one-way traffic of information is actually delivered, like this monologue, right? So I think it's interesting to me as well, and I don't think people don't get this, but I think a lot of people just find it easier to be given the information instead of actually going out to kind of ask questions and kind of clarify, figure out what doesn't work for them and what works for them and what is their situation and what is not their situation. So I think it's very interesting that, and a lot of people too, kind of, there's so much reverence for people that write books and stuff like that. Yes, they have done a good job of trying to articulate all the information, but in my opinion, there are still things that are going to be missing because there are not those clarifying questions. And even when you ask clarifying questions, it doesn't apply to everybody. And a good example of what I say is you go around and you find books and things that are written for a specific group of people, and then anybody gets their hand on it. For example, you write something for adults, kids get their hands on it. Now, what do you do with that, right? You write something that is meant to empower men, right? A woman gets their hand on it. They're actually applying the same thing. Might work, might not work. I'm interested. You write a book for women to empower them, to give them a context about their existence. Men get their hands on it and they try to replicate it. In that instant, might work, might not work, right? But it lacks the ability to clarify and give proper context. But whoever gets that information would apply and use it how they see fit. It might work, it might not work. But I think it's an interesting thing that happens between the difference between conversation and writing. I actually say it's kind of similar, in my opinion, with text messages as well, and phone calls. I find a lot of people also like the idea of text messages recently because there's no challenging or a direct question. You just put out all your thoughts in the text message. The person can reply. It's all good and all of that, right? But it creates less opportunity for a conversation, right? There's something about this is the information that it is, and you can do what you want to do with it. Compared to when you have a conversation, can get a little heated and stuff like that. You can brainstorm, go back and forth, and you can get a headache from doing that as well in a conversation more than when you actually just say what you have to say and actually move on. Yes, it is painstaking having a conversation. It's even usually more productive. But in a way, to be very fair, the truth is you cannot disseminate enough of conversations. Every single person there's not enough for every single person to get a one-on-one to kind of have the context and information from where they are looking for that help from. That kind of makes sense. You gotta just put it out there and everybody to consume that. Let me know what you think about that. Just something I was thinking about, and I kind of was trying to make sense of it and articulate it on here on New Day Same BS on the No Right, No Wrong YouTube channel. On here, my name is CT. Drop your comments, like, share, send it to someone if you think that this is something they might have thought about. But I think it's interesting. For me, it's just the interesting part. They both have their significance and use, but for the person consuming all this information, it's important to understand the difference between the textbook, the text, the book you've written. The truth about it is that you would not usually have the opportunity all the time to ask clarifying questions, and just taking all of that like it's always written for you can also be very confusing as well. My name is CT. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, ring the notification button, and on No Right, No Wrong on YouTube. And peace, everyone.